Okay, so I'm Randy Hunter with BeginningSax.com, and in this Jazz Sax Quick Licks and Tips video, I wanted to put together a little lesson on bringing the enclosures, flat nines, cyclodominants, all these different components together into a video I'll call, I think, enclosures, flat nines, cyclodominants. What? This is a pretty fun little exercise, I think. And you just heard me play a little bit of it. So it's a little exercise that incorporates some of the things that we've done in some of these Jazz Sax Quick Licks and Tips videos. Let's see. I believe in video number 34, I had one called Bebop Enclosures Made Easy, and video number 23 was working the flat nine. Now in the flat nine we learned this little lick around the keys. Uses the flat nine, so you might want to review that lick. I don't want to be redundant by taking you all the way through that again. And in Enclosures Made Easy, I talked about several different kind of enclosures, and the enclosure we're going to use is the three-note enclosure. It's a half step above a chord tone, followed by a whole step below, and a chromatic approach to the chord tones. So I think the first key, or the first chord that we'll use, and this is cycle of dominance, so we're dealing with dominant chords. The first chord we'll use is a G7 chord. And so we're going to enclose the third on that note to begin, on that chord to begin with. So I'll enclose the B natural, which is the third, with a half step above, followed by a whole step below, and a chromatic approach. So I'm starting with C, A sharp, B. And I'll follow that with the dominant flat nine lick. B, A flat, G, F, and that hand delivers me to the C chord. Now I think a moment ago I did it up an octave. Now I think it sounds really pretty cool when we start on the third, do the third followed by the enclosure. So there I did B, C, A sharp, B. So I've enclosed the third of the G chord. I'm going to follow that with the flat nine, which is the A flat, to the root, which is the G, to the 7, which is the F. And now if you know about guide tones, and that's another one of our quick licks and tips videos talks about guide tones, the F, and I think it's guiding the 2-5-1s if you want to look that one up. The F is the 7 of the G chord. It's a guide tone leading to the third of our next chord in the cycle of dominance, which is E. So our enclosure, and remember I'm starting on 3, the guide tone line, or the flat 9 line, when I put it together, and I've landed on the E, which is the third of the chord of the C7 chord, and it's the first note in our next lick. 3 to the 4, the upper neighbor to the third, half step above the third, and I'm going to follow that with the D, which is a whole step below the E, and then the chromatic approach back to the E, followed by the flat 9, D flat, C, B flat, and then a half step down. The guide tone from the B flat goes to the third of our next chord, the A. So now when I put that together in the key of C, or on the C7 chord anyway, I should say. Now at this point I'm starting to get a little on the lower side of the instrument. I mean, I could continue the lick downward, but I'd really kind of like to get back into the upper part of the horn again. So I'm going to do the enclosure on the F7 chord around the third, right in there. A, B flat, G, G sharp, A. Now I'm on the third. The next note is going to be the flat 9, which is a perfect place to do an octave displacement. I'm going to go up an octave to the flat 9, to the G flat up here. G flat, F, E flat, D. So the enclosure on the F chord followed by the flat 9 line, octave displaced. So when I put everything together to this point, I'm going to start back on the G7 chord, followed by the C7 chord, followed by the F7 chord. could just keep going all the way around the cycle of dominance and have a really neat lick to practice well, in all keys around the cycle of dominance. And I think one of the reasons I love doing these little short licks like this is because when I'm working with students on soloing techniques, on concepts, it's easier to conceptualize a small component like an enclosure connected to a flat 9 line than it is, say, like a large lick from a transcription. You know, these things, you'll find these in solos by great players. So, you know, you can always check any of these little brief licks that I show you in any of these quick licks and tips videos. You can check transcriptions. A lot of times you'll find these directly in transcriptions from some of the great bebop players, you know, Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Hank Mobley. You know, I know Hank Mobley's a hard bop player, but Dexter Gordon, another hard bop player. You still find these licks in a lot of the great players, just their standard repertoire. You know, maybe not note for note, but certainly concept to concept. So you'll find these flat 9's and these enclosures in all the great players. So this is just a way of combining the enclosure with a flat 9. You might practice this on some of the tunes that you're working on, just on the dominant chords. You know, you might even work at anticipating chord changes with some of these kind of lines. So anyway, that's the purpose behind them. Now, remember, be sure to check out the other quick licks and tips videos to help you get a handle on some of these, on the flat 9 line, the enclosures. That way you're not trying to jump into the deep end of the pool immediately as you practice on this, but you can kind of use this as the next step in your building blocks of your musical vocabulary. And remember, I've got tons of lessons in my jazz improv lesson series at beginningsax.com. I've got a lesson on Scrapple from the Apple that uses a lot of these bebop concepts. I've also got a series called the Bebop series, and I've got another lesson in I think it's either stage 2 or stage 3 called Technique Through Concepts. This works on enclosures and enclosure components. Remember, you can find those at beginningsax.com, or you can subscribe for full access to all of my lessons for a monthly rate at randyhunterjazz.vhx.tv. Hope to hear from you soon.